Okay, so we're on page 2 in the Mamar, in the booklet here, and that's Ois Gimel, the third paragraph. We didn't get too far yesterday, so we'll start again from the beginning of Gimel. Someone said to start every day with a reminder to count the Omer. If you forgot to count it last night, you can count it all day today without a bracha. But besides the fact that you ended up counting, once you do that, you can continue counting with the bracha. If you miss the whole 24 hours, you can no longer make a bracha. So today's Omer is 12 days to the Omer, which is 1 week and 5 days. Omnam, what is Midyan all about? Midyan Olosha modern Umeriva. Midyan comes, the word Midyan in Hebrew, the root of the word means strife, division, contention. Zehu calling klipas Midyan, and this is what this klip is all about. Shapirid v'eschalkus. So Hashem created, as we know, klipa, that's a very general term, but there are different kinds of klipa. There's a klipa that causes us to have a drive for money. There's a klipa that causes us to have a drive for other kinds of physical pleasures and lusts. There's a klipa that causes us to get angry. There are different kinds of klipas. This klipa, its energy is all about creating division. This is what's mentioned in Gemara as sinas chinam, baseless hate, and the separation of hearts. Two hearts that normally should be connected. And we know that the way hearts are connected are not physically. It can be two people at two ends of the world, and yet they're connected in their hearts. And there could be two people standing or sitting right next to each other and can be as far apart as two ends of the world because their hearts are not connected, not united. And that's what this clip is all about, creating division. And division is the exact opposite of Kedusha. The Kedusha, who bechinas avos. What defines Kedusha? What defines Kedusha is unity. Kedusha, as it's known, the Ikra Hefesh Bein HaKedusha, the Sitra Achra, the main difference, the key difference between Kedusha and Klipa is the Kedusha of Bechinas Avos. That Kedusha is unity. Zehu called Ikra Yichud Hashem Havaya. This is what's known as the Yichud, the unity of Shem Havaya. Shubchinas hayichud v'hiskalus v'chokma u'midas the kedusha. This is the unity amongst the 10 spheres, and how the spheres are united and they include each other, which means hagam shem chinas esa spheres, even though the spheres are 10, and in the 10 itself, there's two general categories: meichen or midas. Meichen is intellect, midas is emotion. So even though the reason why they're 10 is because each one is so different than the other, but nevertheless, they're all united. Not only united, but they all include each other. In fact, this is a result of Shem Havaya, In fact, we know that the name Havaya itself represents, it's one name, but it represents all 10 spheres. The Yud is Chochmah. The Hey Hashem's name is Bina. The Vav, which is the numerical value 6, are the 6 midas of Chesed, Gevura, Teferes. That's a Hoyd Yesod. And the last Hey is Malchus. So it has all the 10 spheres there, and they're all united, they all together establish this one name, Hashem, Hashem Havaya. Hashem Havaya is what brings everything together. That's Kedusha. But the roots of klipa is lahepach, there's the opposite of this. Klipa comes from a place of division and separation, and therefore everything which is born out of klipa and a result of klipa, an extension of klipa, will also be something that is defined by separation and division. One of the places where you see this is the difference between Yaakov and Esau. Obviously, Yaakov personifies Kedusha, and Esau personifies Klipa. So we find it interesting in the Torah, they both said the same thing, and yet the way Yaakov expressed himself was slightly different the way Esau expressed himself. And that slight difference, which looks like slight difference, is actually the key difference between Kedusha and Klipa. Let's look at the words inside. Yaakov said, Yeshli Kol. Yeshli Kol means I have everything I need. But the word Kol is Lashon Eskalus. It's a word, grammatically speaking, that's inclusive. It means I have everything. The word everything includes everything. Esau also wanted to say the same thing. I have what I need. But his words were, Yeshli Rav, I have a lot. And the word Rav, when you say a lot, it emphasizes Ribui Upirud, a lot and separation. But we're saying a lot means a lot of different things. So the word Rav emphasizes differences between one thing and another thing. The word Kol emphasizes the inclusiveness of everything. I have everything. And here we see another thing. The difference between Yaakov and Esau. Yaakov, Hagam Shoya Ayin Nefesh. When Yaakov came to Mitzrayim, he came with a big family, and this family that he came with, they were the origin, and they are the roots of the whole Jewish nation to come into the future. How many people were there? 70 people. So let's look at the booklet 1 second, page 36. You'll see the pasuk inside. So here the pasuk says, and the one that's underlined, the sons of Yosef that were born in Egypt was 2. Now the conclusion is all the souls of Yaakov that came to Mitzrayim altogether is 70. You see the English? All the souls of Yaakov. But that's not what it says in the Hebrew. In the Hebrew it says kol nefesh. It doesn't say nefesh in plural, it says nefesh in singular. So look in Rashi, on the bottom, where it says, the following I found in Vayikra Rabbah. You see that line? Yeah. Esav only had 6 souls. Esav had only 6 members of the family. Look at the next page, 37 on top of the page. Esav took his wives, his sons, his daughters, all the people of his household. And it says nafshos in Hebrew, the souls of his household, plural. So how is that? Esav had 6 people and it's plural. Yaakov had 70 people and it's singular. The answer is, Rashi says, because they worship many gods, so therefore they were divided among themselves. Yaakov had 70 souls, and the Torah refers to them as a soul, singular, because they all worship one God. So of course it's not about what they're doing. It means that's what defines them. They have different gods and they have different passions, and this one worships this and that one worships that, which means their interests in life, their ideals in life, and everybody's looking out for themselves, and that separates one from the other. But Yaakov, Kedusha, everyone is being drawn to one source, to one point, to one objective, and that's Hashem. So therefore, everybody is united. Everybody's all one. Behind the canal, so this is similar to what we said before, the Besit of the Kedusha, that in the realm of Kedusha, Hagam Sheyesh Esas Sfiros, even though there are 10 Sfiros, which are Gimel Sichlim, 3 of them are the intellectual, Chokmah Bina Das. Zion Midas, and 7 are the emotional. In fact, he says in the parentheses here, that's where the number 70 comes from, because there are 7 midos, and each one of the 7 consists of all 10. So that means that the complete number of 7 is really 7D. And that's where you have Yaakov that the origin of the Jewish people is 70. So when we say that the menorah had 7 branches because it represented the Jewish nation, and the origin of the Jewish nation is 70 people, it's all one and the same. The only difference is in the menorah, you're just saying one thing per each midah, and with the 70, it's broken out to more details, like the 7 weeks of Sfira. So even though there's so many differences, in fact, 70 means that not only is there a general difference between Chesed and Gvura, but you can break it down into more details. Chesed Sheba Chesed, Gvura Sheba Chesed, and every detail is so different than the other detail. But nevertheless, they're all united, they're all one. You know, it's interesting, Rashi and Chumash, when it comes to the Parsha of Matan Torah, Rashi also raises a similar question. It says the Yidden were traveling, and then they came to the mountain, to Har Sinai, and they camped opposite the mountain. So the words in Chumash are, Vayichan Sham Yisrael, and Yisrael camped there, Neged Har, opposite the mountain. And Rashi asks, why does it say Yisrael, Yichan, and he camped there? It should say they camped there. In Hebrew, it should say Vayachanu, that's they. Vayichan means and he. It was a whole nation of 600,000 people, should have said they. So Rashi answers, because they camped ki ish echad b'leiv echad, like one person and one heart. So that phrase is used very often, ki ish echad b'leiv echad. But if you think of it, what is it saying? Did you ever find that a person should say that I feel fragmented? I don't feel cohesiveness. Why not? I don't know. I have one hand on my right side, have another hand on my left side, have an ear on my right side, have another ear on my left side, have a right foot and a left foot. This is on the right, this is on the left. I have eyes and nose, and every organ is doing something else. I just feel scattered. No normal person feels that way. Why? Because there are different organs and there are details and details and details, but there's one single identity. And therefore, it's different, but not separate, not division. And then same thing here, you can have different people, 600,000 Yidden, or actually in total it was about 3 million Yidden by Matan Torah, but it was like with one heart, we had one identity, one God, one purpose, and our lives, one ideal that unites us all, so we're all one. And that's the way it is in Kedusha. But in Klippa, in the opposite of Kedusha, there's no unity because there's nobody, we don't say that everybody's connected to Hashem. On the contrary, they're connected to all their passions and impulses and their own personal desires and pleasures. So each one is in their own place. Where does this come from? So everything that's down here comes from the original source up there. The original source where Klippa comes from is the world of Tohu. So let's examine what goes on in the world of Tohu, and then we'll see how from there, what evolves is Klippa the way we know it. And this is the way it is in the root, in the source, so we know this is a big subject in Chassidus. It's known as the subject of Tohu and Tikkun, the two worlds. First, there was a world that Hashem created, was the world of Tohu. And then Hashem corrected that by creating the world of Atzilus. That's called the world of Tikkun. Tikkun means correction. What does it say about this world of Tohu? That initially Hashem created a world. And I mean, there's different midrashim that say it in different words, but the source is also in the Zohar and Kabbalah. Hashem created a world. and that world broke, fell apart. And the Medrash sometimes says Hashem created a world that didn't like the way it came out, so he destroyed it. Other places say it fell apart. Well, we know it's not like Hashem baked the cake and it just didn't come out right, so he dumped it. Obviously, it's part of a plan. Hashem created a world for a reason, that it should be the kind of world that can't really last, and it fell apart. And then Hashem created another world to put everything together. The world that fell apart is called the world of Tohu. And that's how the Torah begins. The first beginning of the Torah starts off, and the world was Tohu Vavohu, which means it was chaos and there was emptiness. This is the chaos that it's talking about. I mean, there are some people, and I actually saw some people that say, how do we reconcile the fact that we find fossils, we find evidence in the ground that the world is millions of years old, and according to Torah, it's only 5,781 years old. So the answer they give is that maybe these fossils and the dinosaurs are from the previous world of Tohu. But that's because they have the wrong understanding of what this world is all about. It wasn't a physical world that had animals and dinosaurs and bones, and this is the leftover. We're talking about a spiritual world, not just a spiritual world. Remember, there are four worlds. The lowest is Yitzira, above that is Bria, above that is Atzilus, which is in itself sort of an infinite world, and Tohu is above Atzilus, above Keser, all the way up there on the map. So it's not a world that you can have fossils remaining from there. There's nothing physical there. So it means there was something spiritual, and there was also 10 spheres, but it fell apart. So why did it fall apart? There are many reasons that are given. But the truth is, once you understand the concept fully, you can see that all the reasons are interconnected one with the other. They're not, the reasons aren't separate reasons. They're really one reason, but it just manifests itself in different ways. So let's say which reasons are you going to talk about? The reason is they were like separate branches. He's using the analogy of a tree. The trunk of the tree is one. So when you go to the trunk, there's just one trunk. But then as the tree starts spreading out, there are branches. And one branch goes this way, and one branch goes that way, and that's where they start separating. So the 10 spheros in the world of Tohu, Hashem created as separate branches. Each one was separate from the other. What does separate mean? The midas of Tohu were so powerful, so intense, that one attribute couldn't tolerate the other attribute. The attribute of chesed could not tolerate the attribute of gevura because it's the opposite. And gevura couldn't tolerate the attribute of chesed because that's the opposite. Which of course is hard for us to imagine. So we think of it, people. Imagine a person that embodies chesed, like we said yesterday. A person who is the epitome of chesed, which means they just have love for every person, kindness, sensitivity, caring, and they can't bear to as they say in English sometimes, to a fault. They can't do anything that has to do with discipline and putting their foot down and saying no because they're just bursting with chesed. So let's imagine chesed, a chesed person to the most extreme degree that you can imagine. Then you have a gevura person to the most extreme, and that's what they sort of appreciate, to do things in a gevura way. Even though we're not talking about bad and good. It's like they use the expression in English, tough love. If you love your child sometimes, you have to be tough. You have to put your foot down. You have to discipline. You have to say no. Because if you say yes, 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 and they never hear the word no, they could chas v'shalom grow up handicapped. They can't live with something that's a no, and it's impossible to live a life like that. So therefore, there's a person that they understand and they appreciate it, and they're passionate about the discipline aspect because they're a gevura person. Then you have a person who is the opposite. They appreciate and they're passionate about the chesed part. These two people, one can't stand to the other. How could you be so soft with this person? You're ruining them. It's terrible. It's crazy what you're doing. And the chesed person saying, how could you be so harsh? How could you be so mean? How could you be so strong? These two people, they can't stand each other. So that's the way it was in the spheres. The sphere of Chesed was, it's like taking two forces. One is pulling to the north, going 100,000 miles an hour, and the other one is pulling to the south, going 100,000 miles an hour. It's going to break. Whatever, if they're both holding on to something and pulling in either direction, it's going to break. And that's what happened. There was a breakage in that world because each one was intensely in an opposite direction. That's what it says, and they ruled and they died. Anyone familiar with what that means? They ruled and they died. Okay, after this mimer, you'll never again say you don't know what it means. I'm going to show what it means. I hope, anyway. I'll try it out next week, see if you still remember. Let's look in the booklet on page 38, 39. This is, in a sense, the source in the Chumash where it alludes to the world of Tohu. Look at page 38.
Is that a trick question? Because there is no 38.
There's no 38?
Or is it after?
It's 39, 38, 40.
Okay.
It's like in the next page.
How could that be? I have a 38.
It was just switched. Just
Oh, the order.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's just to check if you're awake. That's all. Baruch Hashem, you're awake. Okay.
Thank God.
So in 38 it says, let's read where it's underlined. And these are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom. Edom, that's the descendant of Esau. And they reigned before any king reigned over the children of Israel. These kings came before. Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom. The name of his city was Dinhava. So he reigned. The next pasuk says, Vayomas, and Bela died. And who became king instead of him? Who succeeded him? Yovav. Yovav, the son of Zerach from Botzra. The next pasuk, Vayomas Yovav, and Yovav died. And who was under him? Chusham. Vayomas Chusham, then he died. Who was under him? He died. And who was under him? So the Zohar says these 7 kings that it talks about, it says they ruled and they died. They ruled and they died. It's really alluding to the spheres of the world of Tohu. And that's why sometimes you might see it written down as the 7 kings of Tohu, because when you say the 7 kings of Tohu, you're alluding to the kings that are mentioned in the Chumash and the spheres in the world of Tohu. Kidu, as it's known, and that's why it says, they ruled and they died, which means they couldn't tolerate each other, and therefore they clashed. And as a result of that clashing, they were all sort of got destroyed. Kidu, as it's known, this is what happened. The result was the breaking of the vessels. And this is from where Klipa comes from. And this is where separation and division comes from in the world of Klipa, because it's coming from these spheres that were separate one from another. Yeah.
If Torah is destroyed, how is it energizing the sphere?
If what?
Torah, if it's already being destroyed, how is it still energizing the keeper?
If it's already destroyed, how is it energizing the Klipa? How can it be the source of the Klipa? So, obviously, like all the things we talk about in Chassidus, it's not something that was and no longer exists. It was in the beginning of creation, and now it exists as a level which precedes the other worlds of Atzilus. It still exists. That world of Tohu, that realm of Tohu, is still in existence.
When we say it's being destroyed, what does that actually mean?
Okay, so that's another question. What actually happened? What do I mean they destroyed? They killed each other? We're talking about spheres. They weren't fighting, didn't have a wrestling match. So what happened? So the way Chassidus explains it is that every sphere consists of 2 components. One is the light and one is the vessel, Oros and Kelim. Using the analogy of the human body, we also have intellect and emotion. So when we say intellect, it's Chochmah, Bina, and Das, but there's two components to the intellect. There's the vessel and there's the light, meaning the vessel, the physical container that facilitates the power of intellect is the brain. That organ in the head, the brain is what facilitates the power of intellect is not physical flesh. It's not a muscle. It's not a physical tissue. The power of intellect is an energy that comes from the neshama. So that's the energy, and it's contained in this container. The same thing is with the spheres. Of course, up there, everything is spiritual. There's nothing physical, but within the spiritual itself, there's one component which is called the vessel, and that's mainly to contain the light. And there's another component which is the aura, which is the light contained in the vessel. So normally, and in a healthy way, the light and the vessel have to be in proportion to each other. And then it could function in a healthy way. Like in the human body, that if the energy that's being generated in the brain and in the heart is normal and healthy, then that could work together with the body and with the organ of the body. But if chas v'shalom something happens which is out of the ordinary, let's say in the person, in his heart, suddenly experience something which is shocking, something which is, God forbid, very tragic, and also something which is extremely, extremely out of the ordinary, exciting, it could affect the physical heart because the physical heart, the vessel, can't contain such energy. It's too much energy for the vessel. Just like Begashmis. If you take something and you put it into a box and it doesn't fit and you keep stuffing it and stuffing it, you're going to break the box. You break the vessel. Or if you take something like hot water, boiling hot water, and you put it into the glass, what's going to happen? The glass will break because the heat is too much energy for a glass. It could be contained in something that's metal, but not contained in something like glass. So basically, the vessel, what happened was that because the energy of Chesed and Gevurah and Tiferes, they were pulling each one in 7 different directions and they clashed. So ultimately, the vessel broke. There was too much going on. And the vessel that broke evolved from there into this physical world, but it doesn't mean that the source sort of disappeared, that the source of that world, Olam Hato, is still in existence, but we, through our Avodah, we elevate the sparks down here that reconnect to its original source. What happened to the light? So then what happened was that the light remained without a vessel. The light sort of got closer to its source, where it came from originally. It didn't disappear, but it's there. And from there, it's the source of everything that happens down here. So Klippa down here, its roots are the world of Tohu, and therefore the nature of Klippa and the style of Klippa, the pattern of Klippa will be identical to the pattern of that world. And one of the things are division. That's what it's all about. That's what happened in the world of Tohu, was division. That's the main reason for everything falling apart.
You know what?
Yeah.
How come I'm probably not asking the question right, but it seems that Esav is kind of associated with the well.
Esav is what?
Associated with the well of Tohu.
Why is Esav associated with Tohu?
Yeah, because with this generation that we just read, I mean, it's like all his descendants that's kind of getting that to explain the whole process of, the...
Right. But in other words, Esav himself was from the world of Tohu, and Yaakov, who was born, was in the world of Tikkun. In fact, just like in the world, which world came first? The world of Tohu or the world of Tikkun? Tohu. Who was born first? Esav was born first, and then came Yaakov. Same thing. And sometimes Chassidus says that when a fruit grows, what grows first? The fruit or the shell? What is the shell called? Klippa. So the klippa comes first, and then comes the fruit. There's a story in Gemara. Without Chassidus, it's a pretty shocking story. And the Gemara says that there was one of the sages saw that his teacher, who's also a sage, was in an extraordinary good mood. And he realized that he's in such a place now that whatever I ask him, I can get an answer. So what did he ask him? Imagine you can have, the Rebbe would say to you, any question that you want, about anything in the world you can ask me. First of all, you'd be racking your brains to think of like the most important question. What do good things happen to bad people or whatever? Anyway, what was his question? He says, when a herd of sheep are walking or running, there's the black sheep and the white sheep. And the black sheep are always ahead of the white sheep. Why is that? That's the question that bothered him more than anything else. Anyway, what was his answer? He says, because that's the way Hashem created the world. First, he created light, a darkness. First, he created night, and then he created day. If you look around the surface, like this is what it's all about. You have the opportunity for the question of a century, and this is what you're asking, and what's the answer? So, because Hashem did it like that, that's why they're like this. So Chassidus explains it's actually describing the whole pattern of creation. That the whole pattern of creation is Hashem is infinite, and before anything could even begin to happen in creation, the first thing that needs to happen is tzimtzum, which is the darkness. That's why night comes before day. And the same thing is here, Tohu comes before Tikkun. Golus comes before Geula. The Asa was born before Yaakov. And even in this pasuk we just read, and these are the kings of Esav that were ruling before the kings of Israel. And Eretz Yisrael itself was first in the hands of Kanani, Achiti, Ameri, the 7 nations, and then it came into the hands of the Jewish people. So basically, this is the order that first Hashem created Klippa, and he created it in a way that it should fall apart, but we should be the ones to put it back together again. That's what it's about. Hashem could have created, it's with an intention. That wasn't that it just happened because it didn't come out right. The intention was to create something that's extremely, extremely, extremely powerful. It can be contained, and then we're going to work on it and correct things. And at the end of the day, by us doing that avodah, not only will we be able to have something that's cohesive, but it'll be able to contain that very light that's uncontainable. That's the purpose. Yeah.
If this light is the one who sustains Klippa, and we're like supposed to elevate it, how are we supposed to elevate it if we're not supposed to do Klippa?
So there are two kinds of Klippa. If it's a Klippa which is something prohibited, asur, then the way we elevate is by rejecting it. If it's a Klippa which is Klippas Noga, then we could deal with it by making a bracha over it, doing it the right way, and that's how we elevate.
Maybe that's why it was Moshe Rabbeinu's task, because he was the only one that could actually deal with this stigma, not the rest of Israel. No?
What do you mean?
Like with Nadia's question, she's saying, in a way, it seems like we're inadequate to deal with that.
Right. There's certain things where we're actually told, stay away, this is not for you. But whatever Moshe Rabbeinu was able to hit on, go to Paro, into his palace, yes, it's true. In fact, it says in the Zohar, Moshe was afraid to go to Paro because he was the source of the klipa. He was the klipa of all the klipas. You know? Yeah, yes.
When you personally think of klipa and like even just like how every object is created behind the face, like do you envision like some type of like metaphysical like energy? Like do you picture it as like something physical, or is like purely like ideas that have energy but are not physical? Or do you think it is something that we can't see but that like physically exists?
No, I think it's pure spiritual. I mean, not physical. I don't mean spirit. I mean pure, something which is intangible, spiritual, and that gives life to food that's not kosher, or things that are not kosher, or things that are gashmis, anything that conceals godliness. It's something. It's like a neshama in some ways, like a soul to a body. The fact that we have things today, like electrons and all these things that exist and you can't see them, helps us relate to it much better. Because years ago, it was like, if I can't see it, how could you say that it's here? Today, there's so many things that we can't see. They're very powerful. They accomplish amazing things, and yet you can't see them. It's actually related. You'll have a class later, but today's everyone was, talking about Chof Ches Nissan, which is actually tonight. That was the famous Sikha the Rebbe gave. We'll have a class a little bit later in the afternoon. But I don't know if I'll go into it in the class because it's a little bit difficult, but now that we're talking about it, when the Rebbe gave that Sikha and he said, I did everything I can, I'm giving it over to you, do everything you can. The Rebbe said a line, do it in a way that'll be the light of Tohu in the vessels of Tikkun. Someone who doesn't know Chassidus would never understand what those words mean. It's the light of Tohu in the vessels of Tikkun. In other words, the ultimate goal is that original light that was uncontainable, the light that was impossible to contain because it's so infinite, it's so intense, that light will be contained in a vessel and it'll emerge in a way that it could be contained and be found in this physical world. In other words, when we do that, we'll actually have something which is higher than the light of the world of Tikkun. Similar to the idea that a Baal Tshuva could reach a higher level than a tzaddik because the Baal Tshuva is elevating the light of Tohu. And as a result of that, this is where the big debate came from when the people talk about the subject of Mashiach. Some people say you have to tone it down, speak in a relaxed way, make it simple, tell people that it's a nice little fuzzy, little cozy little thing. Don't make it like overwhelming. And people say, no, the Rebbe said the light of Tohu. It's got to be something that's going to shake people up. It's got to be something really radical. Oh, but if it's too radical, then it's just going to blow people away. No, the Rebbe said, put it into vessels of Tikkun. Explain it, bring it down. So these are the two schools in Chabad. One school is focusing on making sure the vessels are contained, and they sometimes go down too far. And some people are too involved in making sure that it's so radical that it blows people away. So you got to find the right balance between the two things. In other words, the message has to be really a radical message. Hey guys, this Mashiach that the world's been waiting for 5,700 and so many years, it's happening now. This is what's happening now. This incident that happened in China, in India, in Russia, in Israel, in Iran, this is part of Mashiach coming. And that's something which is radical. People don't think along these lines, never think about Mashiach in such an actual, practical, relevant way. But on the other hand, it has to be explained and brought out in such a way that people could relate to it and not just blow them away with it. So that's called the light of Tohu in the vessels of Tikkun. Because when Mashiach will come, that's what's going to happen. The fact that there'll be such a world that we never saw before, no Yetzer Hara, no sickness, no death, and no hunger, no this and no that, and all the world understands Hashem. How would this all happen? Because there'll be a new light that was never here before. Which light is it? The light of Tohu. But the world will still be a world. We'll still be humans, have a physical body, eating and sleeping and drinking, which means it'll be the light of Tohu, but in the vessels of Tikkun, in a contained way.
So is Moshiach the light of Tohu?
What?
Is Moshiach the light of Tohu in
Yeah, that's what Mashiach is. He is bringing down the light of Tohu into the world of Tikkun. Right.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
When you look at the figures for Mitzrayim, it's limitation, right? Or restrictions. For Mitzrayim?
Yeah.
Limitations, restrictions.
Right.
And then you come to Amalek, which is coldness, and then you come to Midian, which is like
Division
and all that, and then Moshe Rabbeinu is like the main.
He's going to be the main person. That's how the Mamar
started.
started. Why did Moshe have to fight Midian? Right? Everything came from him, and specifically Midian. He's going to explain how Moshe is the real cure for division. It has to come from Moshe. And even though there's so many other things that also help bring things together, but that's all a result of Moshe. And that's what he's going to explain in the Mamar. That's why he was the one that had to fight this war. He was the force and the spiritual and the Kedusha that could fight this force in Klippa.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
The actual event that happened that brought about the war, was it, with Cosby? I mean, it was the
Yeah,
fact
that was that
was
story.
the event, so that is more like a lust. It's not, it doesn't seem to me to be something of a division. But we're saying that Midian is a people of division. Is it the same thing?
It was something to do with lust,
Right,
but the purpose, the intention of this klipa was using this lust
right.
as a bait, as a way to get them to be divided amongst each other
Ah,
and be chas v'shalom separated from Hashem.
right.
So, Rabbi, in terms of these are like the end products, like, limitations, coldness, and they have
The end products of different klipas, right?
like the 7 needles or whatever.
Right,
Right.
right. So the next piece is going to say, okay, this is midyan. Now, where do the 7 meters fit in? He's going to, that's the next piece on the Mamar. We'll explain where that fits in. It's like studying biology. These are all different kinds of infections. Different kinds of bacteria. There's a Amalek bacteria and a Midian bacteria and a Mitzrayim bacteria and a Plishtim bacteria, and we're learning all about it. Yeah.
But Midian it's not a sphere in itself. It's a characteristic.
Yeah, Midian it's a klipa that comes from the world of Tohu. But the question is where from? Well, so we're going to see if the 7 nations come from the 7 spheres of Tohu, so where does Midian come from? Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. A good Shabbos. So anything happened to the dome last night they don't know about?